About a month ago, I went over all the changes that were occurring to the American vehicles in Update 10.3 for World of Tanks Blitz, and Wargaming told us that the 2 and 10E4 max speed is getting increased by 2 kilometers. The average damage per shot is being reduced by 10, and the shell type changes to APCR on the standard rather than AP, heat for the premium, and the normal HE for high explosive, and it says the shell speed will be adjusted accordingly. So overall, it seems like the E4 really isn't getting changed all too much, at least on first impressions. However, it turns out that that is not the case. We can actually see a closer and in-depth look on what Wargaming is planning on doing to the T110E4 in the actual update, and oh boy, is it a lot of bad. You can see there's a lot more red than there is green. So let's start off with the hit points. Currently, the E4 has 2,000 hit points, which is a lot. We can see that in game, so if you're running hit points, you can get up to like 2150. Well, that's no longer going to be the case. The E4 is going to be sitting at 1750 base. That alone is a pretty big nerf to the vehicle's frontline capabilities. That is an absolutely massive chunk of hit points. I mean, that's 250. So yeah, frontline capabilities already taken a bit away from the vehicle, but it gets worse. It's also losing damage per minute, going from about 3,200 with gun rammer to 3,000. And if you're running calibrated shells like I do on a lot of my tanks, you're going to be going down to around 2,800 damage per minute. It's still high, don't get me wrong. I mean, you're still going to beat a lot of heavies, and you still got a lot of alpha, but it's nowhere near the DPM that the vehicle had just one patch before this change. So yeah, quite unfortunate. The shell velocity is getting better on the standard, but quite a bit worse, from 1,000 to 785 on the heat shells. Yeah, it's going to be rather unfortunate. The HE is also obviously losing some DPM as the vehicle is losing damage per shot by 20, going from 960 to 940, and the reload's getting worse. So yeah, a bit unfortunate there as well. However, there is one good thing and one saving grace about the E4 next update, and that is the dispersion. It is going from 0.374 to 0.326. And again, this is base values. If you're running food and equipment, you're going to be able to get that down to 0.308. Which is what it was about 2 updates ago. So that's actually nice. I'm not going to lie. I like accuracy. And even though Wargaming is taking away the DPM and they're taking away the hit points, they're not changing the accuracy to be worse. They're making it much, much better. So I am a fan of that. I think the tank's going to be a lot more enjoyable for me to play because I don't like YOLOing with this tank. I like being calm and collected, poking, hitting my shots. That's kind of what I like with the E4. So I'm excited to see how the vehicle's going to play with incredibly good dispersion. But other things that are getting worse on the tank, well, we got the power to weight ratio is going down, not by a lot, but it is still going down a bit. And as well, the traverse speed is getting worse, from 28 to 26 degrees on hard terrain and 24 to 22 on medium. But there's one other buff, and that is the top speed going from 35 to 37. So overall, what can we take home about these changes here? Well, the E4 is basically getting a massive nerf. It's losing hit points, losing DPM, at gaining the better dispersion and slight better top speed, but again, worse traverse and worse effective power to weight. What do I have to say about these changes? Personally, I'm all for them. There's going to be a lot of people that don't agree with my take here, but I personally believe, as well a lot of skilled players believe, that the E4 is one of the most cringe and toxic tier 10s to fight currently. I can't tell you how many times I'm in a tier 10 heavy and some E4 rolls around the corner, shoots me for 640, and I'm like, okay, well I'm going to go drive up to that E4 and shoot him, and I hit him back for 420 or 460, but because the tank is 3200 DPM, it just shoots me back. You can't counter an E4 in a lot of heavies because of the DPM and the reload that the thing features. Because of that, it's just not a fun tank to fight. A lot of times you get yourself stuck in situations like that. And it doesn't matter how unskilled the player is because they have a lot more DPM and it has a crazy amount of penetration. So personally, I'm glad that Wargaming is putting these changes onto the E4. I don't think the vehicle deserves 2,000 hit points. I don't think it deserves that much DPM. But let's take a look at what Wargaming is also planning on doing to the armor. We We can see this by scrolling all the way down to the bottom of the changes here. There's so many changes happening, but we can take a look at the changes. Now, first of all, the vehicle is getting PBR. We can see the tank's getting quite a bit smaller. You'll notice the hatch, look at the size of the hatch. It's getting about half the size. But apart from that, not much else is changing on the vehicle. The hull's getting a bit smaller, as we can see, but okay, let's take a look at the hatch armor currently and take a look at it next update. So right now, the hatch sits at about 270 millimeters on the upper part and about 280 on the lower part to 300. It's one of the major reasons why this hatch is so dang troll to pen and why I always just load premium when shooting at it. Alright, turret cheeks on the vehicle. Let's go to flat ground. Turret cheeks are about 300 millimeters thick, and the lower plate's about 250, 200-ish. Okay, let's take a look at the new E4 on 10.3. First of all, we have that hatch, which is no longer very strong. It went from 280 to 300 to 204. I'm very glad. I'm personally happy that the hatch is a weak spot. It's a lot smaller, so I'm glad that at least Wargaming has made the hatch weaker, because imagine if it was still 300 mils thick but it's half the size. Yeah, that would be absolutely stupid. So the hatch is indeed weaker. It's about 220 millimeters thick. Now if you hit the upper part, you'll notice the upper part on the hatch is actually spaced. If you shoot up, it's just going to completely miss like this. So you got to shoot dead center on the hatch and you'll usually pen, or aim at the lower part of the hatch and you should pen most of the time. When it comes to the turret cheeks, they're still the same. In fact, they look to be stronger at around 305 to 320. So yeah, while the hatch is weaker, it looks like the overall turret cheeks are actually stronger. But there's quite a big weak spot that people haven't noticed, but a lot of the skilled players have started to notice, is when you're using gun depression, you can actually shoot right underneath the vehicle. While it says this is 469 millimeters thick, the problem is it's only 38 mils thick effectively. 3 calibers rule will cut right through that. Any shell that is over a 120 millimeter will completely overmatch this under part of the turret here. So literally any time you're in a tank with a 120 or above, you will cut directly through this lower part of the E4 turret on both sides. I definitely think Wargaming should buff that, but you know what? I don't really know, because the hatch is almost impossible to see at this angle, and it's also a really hard pen, so maybe that is the only weak spot. I mean, it's going to be a really hard tank to deal with. Lower plate-wise, it's about the same as we can see. It's a little weaker. It went from about, what, 200 at certain angles, 250 to like 170, but it's not going to change the fact that it's still a big weak spot on the lower plate, and the upper plate's still going to be super, super strong. Side armor's obviously going to stay the same and be super duper weak, so not much is going to change there. Overall, I think the E4 changes are going to be fine. The lower plate is weaker, but the turret cheeks are stronger. The hatch is much smaller, making it easier to hide when hauled down, but at the same time, the turret cheeks are going to be easier to cut through if you are able to shoot underneath them. So it's got weak spots and stronger spots at the same time. Personally, I think the E4 will be just fine. While it is a very, very strong vehicle right now, I think that the accuracy buff of .308, and I think the overall changes to the vehicle aren't going to kill it. But I do think it's going to stop a lot of people from playing it in the matchmaker, which is fine with me, because the less E4s to deal with is the less people I have to deal with cutting through my armor. So if you enjoyed today's video, please consider smashing that subscribe button down below, and let me know what you guys think about the E4. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.